In 2010, a remarkable discovery was found in a cemetery site near the northwestern Polish village of Drawsko.
This site is hundreds of years old. But there's something very strange.
For such a big cemetery that's obviously been in use over such a long period of time, you would expect to see it documented somewhere in the archival records. But it's not at all. It doesn't even appear on any maps of the area. At the time this cemetery was in use, Poland is a predominantly Catholic country, and that means that burials needed to be in consecrated ground, on or near a churchyard. This burial ground is nowhere near a church of any kind.
It's stuck on the outskirts of the village as if to segregate it.
It's all very odd.
Whose body is buried in this macabre way on unmarked ground? Archaeological investigation has begun to fill in the picture of this person's life.
Due to artifacts found around the body, it is thought that the person died in the 17th century.
And the bones have their own story to tell.
The person had been A, female, and B, she had died at the age of approximately 50 years.
The grave fills in more of her story.
With this burial, we don't see a coffin.
The body is simply buried in a pit.
The fact that this is a very simple burial would be suggestive of this individual being part of the poorer part of society.
This evidence describes the burial of a poverty-stricken woman in her 50s who lives in the 17th century. But none of this explains the strange green color in her mouth. And exactly what are the rock and blade for?
The sickle is a curved metal implement blade used to harvest grains, and it would have been the staple tool on a Polish farm at this time.
Why bury someone with such an important tool?
Maybe she's an agricultural worker, but if so, the sickle would have probably been buried by her side, not directly across her body in such a way that it looks prepared to cut straight into her.
There are no cut marks on the bones from a blade, so despite its grisly position, it's unlikely it has anything to do with her death. What about the rock?
There's no sign on the skeleton of any blunt force trauma, not on the skull, no protective fractures on the arm.
Neither the rock nor sickle appear connected to her death. So what are they doing here?
The presence of a rock and a sickle in their positions on somebody's body suggests very strongly that the woman in Drawsko is a deviant burial.
What is a deviant burial? In 17th century Poland, most people are Christian, but ancient pagan beliefs endure.
A fear of the unquiet dead, of bad people or just unlucky people who won't lie peacefully in the grave, is pretty well universal. There are evil souls, people who are rotten in life or put under a curse, or just had very bad deaths, and they come out of the graves to attack the living. And it's the evil soul that produces the Eastern European tradition of the vampire, or in Poland, the upior.
The upior is an undead who visits former friends and relatives, killing them by strangulation or by drinking their blood, unless you can stop them.
We think about ways that we fight the undead with garlic or a stake to the heart, but in Europe at this time, it was something different. A corpse was found buried with a brick in its mouth, and other burials in which there's a sickle across the throat and a padlock on the legs. It was something called apotropaic magic, and it was a way of physically restraining the undead in their grave so they could not come back to torment the living.
Is the sickle an apotropaic restraint?
The sickle placed directly sharp end down over the abdomen of this individual would seem to be placed there to prevent them from rising from their grave without being sliced in half.
That would make the rock an insurance policy.
The rock could be there to keep the individual from getting up, but it also could be preventing the individual from being able to open their mouth to do any damage to the living.
That's not the only strange thing about her mouth.
One of the most startling aspects of the woman's grave is that the mouth, the skull, has a livid dark green stain in it, which is caused by the decomposition of a copper object, almost certainly a copper coin.
Why put a coin in the mouth of the undead?
One explanation is that you put coins in the mouths of bad people, so they have something to chew on in the grave, and they don't come out of the grave and try biting the living.
But this is a frail woman in her 50s. Why would anyone believe she could transform into the evil dead?
As to how one is identified as a threat of becoming undead, it was surprisingly easy. You just have to be a little bit different. You have to show non-conforming behavior, have some kind of physical disability.
And that fits with analysis of this woman's corpse.
When we look at old buried bodies, we usually find the teeth first because they are very durable and they can sustain a very long time in the grave. But the skeleton does not have any teeth, so that tells us that the teeth had been missing before she was buried.
You look at this woman, she appears to have lost all of her teeth. She died sometime after she turned 50. She's quite old. She's frail. You know, it's a very typical image of the crone. It's the kind of individual in society that has been marginalized and persecuted as a witch throughout the centuries. This is a very common target.
So this woman could have been marked out as a witch. But something about the burial site doesn't fit this picture.
There are burials which occur in multiple layers.
You've got graves intruding on other graves. This is a bit of a jumble.
And this woman is rubbing shoulders with people she would never encounter in life.
There is a wide variety of expenditure on burials, from more ostentatious coffins to rather simple ones.
This extraordinary social mix suggests a completely different possibility for the woman and her unmarked burial site. Disease.
At the time this woman died, this part of Poland was just racked by plague after plague, epidemics that killed huge numbers of people, and one of them, in fact, wiped out nearly the entire population of Drosko.
The layers of very different corpses fits with epidemics sweeping the area,
And it came out of the blue for those people.
and locals believe they know exactly who is to blame.
In 17th century Poland, there was a belief that epidemics could be triggered by upiers. So sometimes the first victim of an epidemic could be seen as the person who is perhaps behind it. And preventative measures could be taken to keep them from rising up and further afflicting the living.
Far from becoming one of the living dead, this poor woman's only sin may be having the misfortune to be the first to die.